Right.
Why is this doing this now? Come on. Ladies and gentlemen, we're trying to get this together to our page. Few steps. God, this is so slow. All right, here we go. Come on now, come on now. Two page. Two page. Okay, we should be good now. We should be good now. All right. Everyone here all right? We apologize for the delay. Welcome to from Malcolm to Mumia. We observe the 96th birth anniversary of Malcolm X. We are going to do a special session tonight. We're going to do a special session tonight. Uplift Mumia's and third volume of Murder Inc. Just some background very quickly. My name is Zaid Muhammad. I'm the press officer for the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee. I want to apologize for the technical delay. I will take full responsibility for all of that. I want to thank in advance Sunny Singh, who's been a big help from the Mumia campaign and trying to help us straighten this technical flaw out and to make the most out of the technology at this particular moment. And we're still, for the most part, by virtue of the COVID epidemic, we're still, for the most part, in virtual space. And we're going to do what we can to make the most of the space and the trials of this particular moment. One of the things that has gotten overlooked as Mumia went through an enormous medical ordeal that had all us at very much ill at ease just moments ago, was the publication of the third volume of Murder Inc., an epic effort that he and Stephen Vittoria, who was with us, one of the panelists tonight, undertook an incredible piece in trying to bring this book together. The third volume. So now that Mumia is somewhat in a better place, we still say the best treatment option for him is his freedom. We wanted to uplift this effort, and somebody who we love by the name of Asada Shakur said Mumia certainly represents in his presence his intellect, his clarity, his communication gifts, his integrity, a straight line that we trace back to Malcolm X. So we couldn't think of any better way this particular birth anniversary for Malcolm X than to lift up Mumia. We had been, just more background, since we have gone into virtual space, those of you who are familiar with the work of the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee, you know that for 25 consecutive years, we had an annual fundraiser dinner that we did for the benefit of our political prisoners, right? When we had to go into virtual space by virtue of the COVID pandemic, we had to do something different. So last May 19th, we started doing the beginning of an ongoing series of forums highlighting different aspects of Malcolm's legacy that are relevant to this particular historical moment, dedicating each session to one of the political prisoners who we would have ordinarily taken care of with our dinner. It is Mumia's turn. And so it is incredible that we have the third volume of his book to share with you today as you do this. Ordinarily, what would happen is that we would put in our chat, and it's on our flyer in our press release, our PayPal link for those of you who want to contribute to Mumia's commissary. But we also have the link for you to get the book. The book, whether if you have the 2 volumes and you get in the 3rd volume, right on. If you want to get all 3 volumes, get them. But please avail yourself of this very special weapon that was produced under the most incredibly adverse circumstances we can imagine. Remember, Mumia is in captivity, has been very sick, has been fighting for his life, and we've been fighting to save his life and to free him for now going into our 40th year. So this is a great story, a great odyssey. We want to share that with you. We think we have the right folks on hand to share that with you tonight, and we really want you to enjoy and appreciate what we're doing. And not in this order necessarily, but I want to uplift, and that simply because she's been in my case, has been straightening me out since I was a very, very, very young person. One of Mumia's comrades in the party, and an extraordinary journalist and lawyer in her own right, Rosemari Mealy. The author of Fidel and Malcolm, Memories of a Meeting, that captured that epic embrace of Fidel Castro and then Malcolm X. And we celebrated the 60th anniversary of that epic meeting in one of our webinars just a few months ago, right? So Rosemari, I want to welcome you, right? I want to welcome Mumia's co-author, Stephen Vittoria, straight out of Newark, New Jersey, right? I'm not the only one on this webinar from Newark, straight out of Newark, New Jersey. And I want to let Steve tell his story and how he went from that to this. And this evening will also just be a sharing of stories of what the demands of struggle place on us as we go through these kind of changes to liberate spaces, liberate people, and to liberate humanity, right? In this case, as we all try and liberate Mumia Abu-Jamal. Noelle Hanrahan, hugely responsible for keeping Mumia's voice in airspace, in that legendary radio space that he created with his voice before he was captured and before he found himself in the ordeal of the state, right? With prison radio has been a huge, important resource for Mumia and for the voice of Mumia and the trajectory of Mumia's continued work, despite the adverse circumstance of his captivity. From prison radio, we leap to publishing Murder, Inc. Great stories. We're going to let Noelle tell you that story. And another one of Mumia's comrades, right? Jihad Abdul Mumit. We share the same hometown of Plainfield, New Jersey, whose epic rebellion has not been properly appreciated, but was lifted up by none other than Imam Jamil El-Amin in his first classic epic tome, Die Nigga Die. When he talks about the Plainfield Rebellion, it's something that you all ought to appreciate. It's one of the few uprisings that was armed, and by consequence of that uprising being armed, it had the least civilian casualties as a consequence. So we want to really, so Jihad was one of Mumia's comrades in the party. Jihad went into the Black Liberation Army when the party came under fire. Jihad endured the ordeal of having been a political prisoner. And Jihad is now the co-chair along with a Plainfield comrade, Ashanti Austin, of the Jericho movement. And you all know who are familiar with our work that our own founding chairman, Herman Ferguson, launched the Jericho movement along with the late Sophia Bukhari Austin, our beloved comrade who literally worked herself to death trying to free her comrades. The Jericho movement is still on the case. It's still the ultimate vehicle to embrace the question of political prisoners in the United States. And the Jericho movement has a very special international human rights engagement coming up that Jihad will break down for you in the Mississippi moment. So that's what we're going to do tonight. So in and out of the evening, I will be placing both our PayPal link in the chat for those who want to contribute to Mumia's commissary, and I will be placing the link for the book, Prison Radio Store, so y'all can get this book. And we urge everybody to get this book. Those who have the means, do both, right? And if that's all you can do, that is something that we all can appreciate, because it is something you can share, and it is something that you can use to help move the world. Is everyone all right? So that case, and I want to apologize for the delay. Sonny Singh has been a big help in getting us set up. We're on several different platforms. The Mobilization for Mumia platform, the Bring Mumia Home campaign YouTube platform, and on the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee Facebook platform. So we really want to sound the drum this evening. I'm going to begin, if I can. I'm going to begin, Steve. I want to begin with you because I think, you're the co-author, all right, and we just need to do that. We just need to let you tell that story and how you went from this to that. And Noelle, Rosemari, and Jihad, we will go in that order. So Steve, I'm honored to give you the floor, but just now you deserve an introduction of your own. In addition to being a native son of Newark, New Jersey, there's a lot of Jersey in the house in this gathering tonight. Steve gave us a hugely important film as a top-notch filmmaker that we should all appreciate in Long Distance Revolutionary, that was dedicated to Mumia Abu-Jamal. And it captures Mumia's humanity, and as we all have been trying to capture Mumia's humanity in our effort to get him free. Right. So for those who have not seen that movie, please do what you can to invest in that. It's another means of also helping educate the public around the plight of Mumia's case. And it's a great story and a great effort, and done in a top-notch way. So without any further ado, let me give you Steve Vittoria. Steve, you have the mic, sir.
Thank you. First and foremost, I want to say how honored I am to be invited to celebrate both Malcolm X and Mumia Abu-Jamal, two absolute great citizens of the planet, not citizens of the United States, citizens of the planet, because they care about all people. The story of Murder Incorporated, Empire, Genocide, and Manifest Destiny started back in the early 2000s. I had finished a film entitled One Bright Shining Moment, The Forgotten Summer of George McGovern, which was chronicling the life of a revolutionary inside the system. And my next film, this was back in 2005, 2006, was going to be Murder Incorporated. And in fact, I went around the country. We got 30 hours of interviews in the can. And the most important interview that we got in the can was in San Francisco. Noelle will remember this, at Prison Radio. And I had written 25 questions for Mumia to answer in an audio setting, and we were going to use that throughout the film to pepper the narrative. And what the film, just as the books are, was in 2 hours, I was attempting to tell the complete story and march of empire of the United States from the moment Columbus stepped foot on Hispaniola to yesterday's drone attack. And Mumia took, I guess, about a month and a half to write his answers out. And they were 25 of the most brilliant pieces of writing he's ever done. And they were absolutely brilliant. Noelle did a terrific job recording him up there. It was a real highlight for me to be there and to go through this, especially the outtakes when we were laughing and trying to piece the thing together. And after that recording, unfortunately, my mom she was diagnosed with non-operable brain tumor, and she had about 2 months to live. And I decided to pull the plug at that point on the documentary, even with all of that work in the can. And it was kind of a blessing in disguise, not my mom passing away, but it was a blessing in disguise in that I think I was insane trying to tell that epic story in a 2-hour format. I think I had bitten off more than I could chew. But what came out of not making the film was those 25 answers from Mumia, because those answers forced me creatively to make Long Distance revolutionary, because within Mumia's life were the elements of what I saw in myself at the time as a filmmaker, of what Murder Incorporated was all about. And Mumia personified the struggle. He personified the intellect of what we were trying to do with the film originally. And I think most of you may know the story of Long Distance Revolutionary. Noelle co-produced it with me, and I was just telling you before we started that making that film was the absolute joy of my life. It was, if I never make another film again, it'll be okay, because I made the film that means the most to me. Out of that film came a remarkable relationship between myself and Mumia. In fact, I took my daughter to visit Mumia when he was still on death row in SCI Green out in bumfuck Pennsylvania, where the Underground Railroad used to go right through that area. So I felt privileged to be on that hallowed ground. And when we left the prison, as you always do with Mumia, you're somehow invigorated by his spirit, by his love. And my daughter told me that it was sickening to listen to Mumia and I talk to each other because we finished each other's sentences. She said, you got a real bromance going on there. And that's the kind of relationship we had. And the two of us got together at one of our visiting sessions, and we decided we have this great project sitting on the side that we didn't complete. Let's write the book. You can't do it in a 2-hour movie, but we can write a 1,500-page book. And that's where it got tough, because you had one author that is, roaming around free, and you have one author, an innocent man living in a living hell. And somehow, some way, his brilliance gets out of his head onto the page and out into the public. And that was really the obstacle that we had to get over. The draconian actions of the prison, of, tossing his cell, possibly throwing out a chapter he may have written before he was able to get it in the mail and get it out to me. And Noelle was incredible in being able to give me all of the hints and tidbits of how to do that. And Mumia knows how to do it himself on the inside as well. But it took us close to 5 years to write the book. The film was broken up into 26 segments, so it was very straightforward. Mumia took 13 segments and I took 13 segments, and we turned them into chapters. And we would just mail the pieces back and forth to each other. And visiting with him was phenomenal, but I can't bring in anything to write. He can't bring anything to write. So we would have to talk about it and then hope that we both remembered what the hell we were talking about. And there were short phone calls along the way, but mostly it was the United States Postal Service back and forth. And after 5 years of editing, re-editing, writing each of our work, because it was important for our voice to be one and not to be two. We wanted there to be one voice coming out of the book. We finished, and we started going around to publishers, and like any book, we got a lot of no's and we got some yeses. And the yeses always wanted to do something to the book. They wanted us to cut it. They wanted us to make it shorter. They wanted to change the point of view. They wanted to unplug some of the radicalness of the book. Some people didn't give us the time of day. I don't want to name any of them, but one of them was City Lights. And I thought that they were going to really get behind this book, and they didn't. And Noelle might be cringing right now, but I've always been upset about that, because as one of his publishers, they just never got behind the book, as did another.
There was another publisher that said, we want you to raise all the money and give us the money for the printing, and then do a public fundraiser for us, and then we want to print it. And I was like, are you kidding? And then you're going to give me like 20 cents on the book, or Mumia 20 cents on the book. So it was shocking. It was categorically shocking that people were afraid to publish Mumia's book, that the level of suppression had gotten to what you would think were the courageous publishers. Haymarket, Monthly Review. It's like, it was shocking.
And they wanted it, but they wanted to do things to it. And, we even got close. Remember, we got close with Oxford University Press. I mean, they really liked it, and Nation Books, but there was always someone along the line, usually in a marketing department somewhere, that said, no way, no how. And what was really important to Mumia and I also was we had made a pact that outside of somebody helping us out with a factual error or having a comma in the wrong place or a semicolon in the wrong place, we did not want our work being screwed around with whatsoever. It needed to be sacrosanct. It needed to be our voice. We did not want anyone quashing any of the politics, any of the radical nature of the history, because there have been so many lies told over the last 500 years. We didn't want to be a part and parcel of any of that. And I should probably let Noelle tell the story from here, but I want to say that the Herculean task of getting this book out ended up falling at the feet of Prison Radio, and they became a savior for both of us, because not only did they do a remarkable job publishing the book, but they did a remarkable job of keeping their hands off the content of the book. So when you read this book, we had an editor, and we had a great editor, but not an editor that was looking to axe part of the book out or polish the edges of it, because I knew damn well it was my fiduciary responsibility to protect Mumia's interests, and it was my responsibility to protect my own interests. And that never came up with Prison Radio. Prison Radio wanted it to be transparently our voice and our book. But Noelle, maybe you could tell a bit about your trials and tribulations of getting the book out, and what you guys did.
I think it's also, I can talk to the triumph of getting the book out.
But Noelle, I want you to take the long view when you do that too, because you've been with us. You've been with us a long time, and it was some steps. Just like Steve had to take some steps to go from where he was in his métier with film to the book. You two took some incredible steps. We want everybody to get that story understood well. So take your time with this.
I think that the way in which I see it is that Mumia's work deserves the best that I can bring to it. Like, if I'm a journalist out there in the world and I'm in a position of helping to amplify, when I was a journalist, I decided that I didn't need to be the talking head, or I wasn't going to record some, newscaster giving their opinion about something, that I was going to actually privilege the voices of the people that we value. And I was going to do everything I could to get that voice really in the stream. And so how I see it is, his work is phenomenal, and anything I do has to try to reach that level, and it has to come with the same commitment, the same willingness to risk, because that's just what's demanded of us. Like, that's just, if you are able to hear and see Mumia and understand what a powerful journalist he is, for you to wilt on that stage is a crime. It's like a sin, and so I'm always trying to keep up to him. And that's even happens when, so like, Mumia was a journalist, but he was 10 years older than me. So I'm sitting at my radio station doing the same kind of gig that Mumia is doing. And he's inside and we're doing the same stories because Mumia is reporting and I'm a broadcast journalist on the drive time show and KPFA, and I'm amplifying Mumia, but he's covering the same stories. He covered Eddie Hatcher, right? So Eddie Hatcher, the political prisoner, he did a report on Eddie Hatcher that was better than mine. And he doesn't have access to any information, or he was cultivated his ability to have access to information. So when I was out there, I was trying to match Mumia's work, right, on the air live. But then also knowing that if he was going to get censored, or if his voice deserved something, Mumia Abu-Jamal's voice deserves to be on the biggest platform on the planet. National anchor, NBC, anchor of NPR. And I have this ability to not think that I have the ability to keep scaling up for him, like knowing that he deserves that, and then dragging myself to NPR and sitting in front of Ellen Weiss from All Things Considered and putting the tape in and saying, put this tape in, and I want you to play it. And when she played it, she said, he's one of the best 3 commentators we have ever recorded. And we're going to make him a national commentator. And one of my mentors, this guy, Norman Gio, back in the Bay Area, said to me, your material is going to be so challenging to the state that you have to make sure that it's recorded at the highest quality, the highest possible quality, because they are going to rip your stuff off the air and throw it in the garbage every chance they get. So what you have to do is you have to make them that it's so good that they have to come clean and edit the content, that they have to tell you, we're taking this off the air because of what he said, not who he is or how it was recorded. So I was trying to get that game really high. And that's true. That's what happened. They said, we're not going to air him because of what he's saying, because who he is, because what he represents, not because of the content of his materials. And that's why I love working with Stephen so much, is because Stephen has the same commitment to breaking through that censorship, which requires really a lot from us, a lot. So at every moment we work. So to tell you real concrete stories, that NPR broadcast, they have 10 tapes that they have locked in the basement in National Public Radio that they are never going to let the public hear unless we get those tapes, because they were too afraid to play them on National Public Radio, because Mumia Abu-Jamal on death row would have been heard by 7 to 10 million people in the US, Canada, Mexico, Hungary, and South Africa on All Things Considered as a regular commentator. And when you hear Mumia's voice, like Asada said, you can understand why the state wants to kill him. It's because he speaks so eloquently a truth, and because he's such a linguist that he can speak, in a way that is accessible. And he's a talented broadcast journalist who is trained in the finest traditions of Black newsrooms of Philadelphia, when there were Black newsrooms and there were dozens of stations. So I feel like every time we get our material out, there's a reaction. There's a censorship. HBO did a film on Mumia, and the Fraternal Order Police went to HBO, slammed them, made them take down all their broadcast materials, all their promotion. The engineers who had spent 6 months putting up the websites called us and said, we're crying because they just throw all of our work in the garbage. And the same happened with Addison Wesley, major publisher. When he was censored by NPR, I went to New York and met with Frances Golden and had Frances sell the project to make it available to, she said, I don't know if this is ever going to work. I'll take 2 weeks. It's August. Nobody's going to be in town. I'll send it out for you, but don't expect anything. And she got back an offer from Addison Wesley. And then Addison Wesley was hammered by the Fraternal Order Police. They flew a plane over their national headquarters in Reading, Massachusetts. They attacked their textbook division, which was their big moneymaker. And they canned the promotion for the book. Even though it was a controversy, it sold 30,000 copies in hardcover. So, but everybody else was then frightened. So Mumia's next book was on a much smaller publisher because of the level of repression that happened. So so when I was getting ready to put that book out, and I was really pissed off that Addison Wesley had canned the promotion, I dropped 300,000 pieces of direct mail in support of that book because I was pissed off. And so every time there's censorship, we try and up our game. And I believe this last round, the Murder Incorporated series, our side was too afraid to publish that. And so I wasn't going to stop. I wasn't going to wilt in the face of having Mumia Abu-Jamal able to produce his magnum opus, what he wanted to put out. I thought, well, Prison Radio is going to have to become a publisher, and we're going to step up and we're going to get that book out. And I've just started dropping another direct mail campaign of 25,000 pieces. It hit today in San Diego, Stephen, so you might get it. And I'm going to try and run out a couple 100,000 pieces because I am not going to sit around and wait for the mainstream media to endorse us. We are going to reach the people. Okay, is that enough of a like stump speech? But I'm just like, I'm proud. I'm proud that I get to work with Mumia and lend some good energy. And what you guys have done over the last 10 years, I can't tell you. This is the time I want to live in because I think it's changing. Philadelphia has been this horrific cesspool of police brutality, and the Jericho Philly movement and the Abolitionist Law Center and the Amistad Law Project and CADB. I feel like Philadelphia is ground zero. It's so upset. If we win here, I think we can win here because of the people's families. And it's dangerous, and they're going to get a whole lot more over the top, but that's because we're winning. So I want to thank you guys all for like what you've done, because I'm just sitting here thinking we might actually bring this man home.
And it took us a long time to get here too.
Yeah, there was a lot of sacrifice.
The bastion of the worst censorship, the worst expressions of the narrative has been in Philadelphia, right? Has been in Philadelphia. I wanted to just say one thing too that I didn't say in my opening remarks because we got distracted by the technical difficulties. Is we're also doing this under the shadow and bloody cloud cover of some horrific violence that is happening in Gaza and in Jerusalem. And so I want to say that this is very much the international campaign to free Mumia Abu-Jamal is indeed an international campaign. So I just wanted to stop and just take a moment and offer some international solidarity to the people of Palestine at this particular dangerous moment. Israel apartheid is out of control, and it's time for the international community to do whatever is necessary to check its bloody hands. So we stand in complete solidarity with the Palestinian people in their struggle for the liberation they have yet to see. Great stories, and this has been a long walk and a long haul, and this is the time to step it up. But we want to take even a longer view now. And I want to bring forward one of my teachers, right? When I got serious about this particular dimension of my life work, it was Rosemari Mealy and Sam Anderson and Ahmed Obafemi, and Lombe Brath, who got hold of me, and I was a young knucklehead in my 20s then, right? In my 20s, and I'm hitting 60 this year, and I'm still trying to figure out how I did that. That made sure that whenever I did step out, that I stepped out with the right stuff, that stepped out in the right way. And I appreciate their mentorship and their being patient with my very restless spirit when I was very much younger. But Rosemari and after her Jihad both go back and can talk about Mumia from a longer view, from a longer range. And some years ago, I had a series in Newark called From the Womb of the Whirlwind Towards the People's History of the Black Panther Party. And I remember Rosemari, just out of the blue, we weren't necessarily focusing on Mumia that night, but she just started telling these incredible stories about Mumia and how sensitive he was, even as a young man in the part. I said, we got to figure out how to bring her back and tell those stories and just what that commitment means, what that commitment has meant, and why it is of such importance, of such gravity, right? Of such import that it has landed some of us like him in the captivity that he's endured. Has landed Assad in exile. Has landed Sundiata in his 48th year of captivity, right? And we want folks to look forward to a special event that the reworking of the Sundiata Freedom of Akoli Freedom Campaign is doing on June 23rd. We will have an intergenerational people's art discussion with Emory Douglas, the Minister of Culture for the Black Panther Party, and Sophia Dawson, one of the baddest young artists who's out here now representing her generation, who will assess and appreciate the art of Sundiata. So I'm saying that to say that this is a long, arduous walk that special generation that made up the Black Panther Party took. And I wanted to have that spirit, that word, that drum to be a part of the music that we make tonight. And I wanted some of that to come from none other than our beloved Rosemari Mealy. Rosemari, you got the floor and the mic.
Thank you very much, Zaid, and to all of you who are here tonight on this panel. I'm not long-winded, so I just go to the point and keep moving. That's one thing that you learn when you're taught by the Cubans to do radio. You just put your point out there, that what is, where, and how, and then you just move it on. So I first met Mumia in 1969. He was in the Black Panther Party, and I was a part of a commune in Philadelphia, the Resistance Commune. Many people may know some of that history. It was the headquarters of a lot of what we called at that time Mother Country radicals, who were many of them were not going to fight in the war in Vietnam. We had a printing press in the basement, and I was actually working as I was working in the reparations movement, as a matter of fact, with Muhammad Kenyatta, who was one of the main people who broke into what was known historically as the media files. And that's history there that people may want to follow up on. But anyway, we would print, I would go to support the breakfast programs, and we also supported the party in North Philly as well as in West Philadelphia. So in 1969, when Fred Hampton was assassinated by the Chicago police, the FBI, and the CIA all involved, the Black Panther Party asked our commune if we would drive out to Chicago. And so Mumia was one of the Panthers who rode with us on that trip. And I guess that was probably the most intimate times that I had to talk to this he was 15 then. So it was really interesting to talk to him, just to see how far in advance he was, his whole ideas about the world, his worldview, his commitment, and of course, recognizing his writing skills also. He wrote for the party newspaper. So when we came back from Chicago, after seeing the place where Fred Hampton was assassinated, I actually left my job as a therapist, and I joined the Black Panther Party and never went back to work. I never went back to that hospital to work. Unfortunately, and fortunate to some degree, immediately after that, I was transferred to New Haven, Connecticut, where I worked on the trial of Bobby Seale, Erica Huggins, and the Panther women, primarily, who were incarcerated there. But I would I would see Mumia when we would come for meetings in New York and back to Philly. And again, always the composure, the commitment, the expressions, the kind of like a quiet expressions, but yet on another level, very profound in how he spoke. And of course, I understand what everyone's saying here. He had that magical voice that that allowed you to you wanted to hear what he had to say. And so it's in that context that that I knew Mumia. And then, of course, when he was incarcerated. I did not get to visit him in prison because I ended up working as an internationalist in Cuba, where I worked for Radio Havana, Cuba. And so we had an opportunity then to take just to take those voices of Mumia and broadcast them all over the world. And so that's how I would always say that Mumia internationalized our struggle, the same way in which Malcolm X internationalized the struggle of the Black liberation movement. Mumia's voice and what he stood for contributed in this period to internationalizing our movement that has expanded worldwide. Wherever you go, I went to Italy, I mean, Paris, everybody knows, many people know more about Mumia Abu-Jamal than some of my students that I've had over the years know about him right here in the United States. But that's why I'm saying he has internationalized, and I want to emphasize that. The same way in which Malcolm internationalized our struggle, Mumia has done likewise. It's on that note that all I can say right now is that the same things that were happening in 1969, we know that with the assassination of Fred Hampton, the jury at that time, came back with a verdict and said that the police were justified in murdering Fred Hampton, Mark Clark, and the other Panthers. I think about today, and Mumia would be writing about this. We heard about the North Carolina DA saying that those cops who murdered Andrew Brown, they were justified. So we're getting the same commentary that he would be addressing, and he probably has already addressed it. Probably, if not today, Noelle will know at some point when everybody talks to him, he'll be speaking about that. He's always on the cuff of the news and bringing us that kind of news. So all I can say is that we'll continue to work in this struggle to free him, and we'll continue to work to free all political prisoners. And this is just a very important date. Tomorrow is a very important day that we have a lot to reflect on, but in the context of reflecting on Malcolm X, we reflect on Mumia Abu-Jamal.
You almost put me in tears. Speaking of tomorrow, as we segue to Jihad, New York loaded. There will be a private ceremony at the gravesite in honoring of the tradition that was established by Malcolm's big sister, the late great Ella Little Collins, maintained faithfully by none other than our beloved Baba James Small. Our treasurer, Michael Ferguson, will represent us at the gravesite and say some words on behalf of the committee and on behalf of his father, our founding chairman, Herman Ferguson. That'll take place in the morning. We will live stream that from our page, from our Facebook page, for those who are trying to figure out how to get that. We will live stream that here, right? At 12:30, Harlem, 125th Street and Old Broadway, we will rededicate the Malcolm Urey mural. 6 years ago, 2015, some young people put together a beautiful mural dedicated to two Harlem legends, Malcolm X and Yuri Kuchiyama, who share the same birthday, and Yuri was a faithful, Malcolm comrade. She joined the Organization of Afro-American Unity from its inception with Malcolm, and was already an emerging international human rights legend her own self. Many may not know this about Yuri, but Yuri's activism, she really started turning it up when she had to face the ordeal of being put in a concentration camp during World War II. She was outspoken about how people were treated, coming in out of those concentration camps. And when the United States had the gall to test nuclear weapons on the Japanese people with Hiroshima and Nagasaki, she would also become one of the leading voices for nuclear disarmament during that age. She brought that international sensibility into the Organization of Afro-American Unity. And since Malcolm's assassination, of course, she became an iconic figure of international human solidarity in her own right. She participated in the legendary takeover of the Statue of Liberty back in 1978 by Puerto Rican comrades in order to free the Puerto Rican Five. She's been organically involved in the fight for our political prisoners and has been a strong champion of the Black Liberation Movement and the Puerto Rican independence movement, among so many other walks that she has been intimately involved in an organic way. So we will be honoring both of them. That mural has been repainted, rededicated, touched up, and we will have a press conference at 12:30, 125 and Old Broadway, to rededicate that mural and raise up Black, Brown, and Asian solidarity the way they did and the way that we need to at this time, because of course the right wing has gone ridiculous, led by none other than the former President Donald Trump, in trying to demonize Asian Americans, particularly the Chinese, with the advent of COVID, and trying to make it an Asian disease when it's a disease. Well, the ultimate disease is the racism that's even worse than the disease itself that they're spewing out. And unfortunately, we've seen folks from all walks of life in the working class, including Black folks, be on the wrong side of that abuse. And we've seen Asian Americans, particularly Asian American elders, be horrifically abused on the streets of New York. And, you know, we ain't with that. That's a backwards move. We condemn that to the fullest. And you will see, and there's been a great coming together of young Asian, young Puerto Rican, and young Afro-American activists coming together, doing some real serious solidarity work right there in Harlem and El Barrio. And then all that will come together at 12:30 tomorrow in Malcolm and Yuri's name, right? At 3 o'clock online. And all of this you can get from our Facebook page, right? Rosemari and Sam will be co-moderating an event that will look at Palestinian solidarity in honor of Malcolm and the Dean of Pan-Africanism. I mentioned Olombe Brath earlier. The ancestors chose May 19th to call Olombe home back in 2014. So May 19th is a loaded day for us in so many levels. And of course, May 19th is also the birthday of Ho Chi Minh, the great Vietnamese insurgent who led the embarrassment and the shaking down of 3 empires. Oh yes, the Vietnamese people was that resilient in the face of attacks from the imperial backwardness of the Japanese Empire, the French effort to try and take them down, and then ultimately even the big bad United States themselves, right? Ho Chi Minh's birthday is also May 19th, the student of Marcus Garvey. Oh, we can't make this stuff up. Ho Chi Minh organized an organizational tendency and machine that really made the statement of what it means for people to be the ultimate expressors and makers of humanity, and not technology or weaponized technology, as they resisted all 3 empires on their way to their national liberation. So we will bring all of that together at 12:30. Shortly thereafter that, not in virtual space either, we're going to do as we've done for almost 32 years in a row, led by our comrades in December 12th, when we're going to shut 125th down commercially in honor of our freedom fighter, right? So all that is happening. Later on in the evening, Fred Hampton Jr., the beloved son of Chairman Fred, will be the guest of the December 12th movement at New Canaan Baptist Church in Brooklyn. So stay tuned. All of that, again, is available on our Facebook page. So I want y'all to understand that we will continue to uphold and uplift Malcolm, as we always do, in an uncompromising, central way on May 19th, as he ought to be celebrated. And we look forward to, hopefully next year, we'll be back in a more reasonable space where we can resume the annual pilgrimage to his gravesite, as we've done over the years. So with that, yes, ma'am.
Before you introduce the brother, may I just inform that the program that was scheduled for tomorrow, Harlem, Malcolm X, and Palestine, the Israelis have blocked the live feeds, so it's canceled. However, that program has been rescheduled for August 25th, Black Solidarity Day.
Okay, wow.
I'm putting it in the chat.
Wow, thank you. I didn't know that. Thank you.
Oh, we just found out today.
And that goes to, I mean, we're not just talking about Israeli apartheid. We're talking about the incredible resources and reach of the Zionist establishment within this country and its capacity to censure, right? So that's something too that we need to. That's something solidarity forces here in the States definitely need to take up and resist and expose. So those of you who have not connected with the BDS solidarity movement yet, the time has come. Those of you not figured out how to embrace solidarity with the Palestinian people, the time has come. So we needed to hear that share. Thank you, Rosemary. We resisted. We will definitely figure out how to get that out, right? So now back to where we were. We have always said, and it's clear as the gray on my face, that international human solidarity has been the heartbeat of the campaign to free Mumia, has been at the heartbeat of getting him off death row, the heartbeat of making sure he got medical care when his health became a crisis, and that has happened several times now over the last 10 years or so. And it will be, I would dare say, the international human solidarity and the international working class that will be at the heartbeat of us ultimately freeing Mumia, right? So with that, the question of human rights, the international human rights question, the international human rights community has to continue to play a role, an important role in making sure that this story is told, and the mistreatment of our political prisoners and the mistreatment of our people is rightfully isolated and condemned as it should be from as many quarters as we can possibly gather. Now, I should say one finally before I bring Jihad on, that this event also is a part of our effort to contribute to the motion of the decade of the African descendant. This is the International Decade of the African Descendant, launched in 2015 to raise up, the humanity of African peoples in spite of the colossal crime against humanity that was the transatlantic slave trade. And it's also to acknowledge ultimately the legitimacy and the importance of the question of reparations. It's not ironic that Rosemary would make that recall of her work with reparations way back in the late 1960s, and how that is ever present, ever important, and an ever critically issue to raise as in this particular moment as young folks, Black, brown, and white, particularly yet led by young Black women from Boston to Buenos Aires, from London to Los Angeles, have been raising hell in the streets around the backwardness and just the sheer wrongness and abusiveness of police abuse as that has manifested itself against African populations throughout the diaspora. So with that, we want to let Jihad really lay that out, and of course his own background. He's walked that long walk from the Black Panther Party, the Black Liberation Army, having endured the plight of having been a political prisoner, to now raising up the whole question of the plight of his comrades and the plight of our people in the international human rights community. October, look forward to this important tribunal that will be coming up in October, and I will now give Jihad the mic and let him rock as he usually does. Right, Jihad, sir, the mic is yours, sir. You're muted, Jihad.
Thank you, Brother Zaid. Appreciate that introduction. I begin, as I always begin, with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Assalamu alaikum to everyone. Again, my name is Jihad Abdul Mumit. Before I get into some introductions about myself, I want to really applaud Stephen and Noelle. That story that you filled in so many details for me, just following along with the publishing of the book and all that was going on behind the scenes. And it really is a testament to what it means to dare to struggle, dare to win. It's a testament to persistence. It's a testament to diligence and sacrifice, endurance. It's a testament to all those challenges to maintain your integrity and not compromise and lose focus. And I really salute you. I mean, you're already with 10, but now you're 11. So there you go. I'm going to have to recalibrate my my evaluation scale there, but really. And Dr. Mealy, you know, I appreciate you, sister, in hearing your stories and your travel, and you bring so much to the table that we need in connecting something you said, which I'm going to just talk about a little later on. And I also hopefully don't be that long at all. But, you know, you making that connection, you know, from Malcolm to Mumia, and how both of these comrades, how both of these beloved brothers and leaders, you know, have brought our struggles to the international arena. And you making that, just that one sentence resonated. It said so much, and it is so true. It is 1000% true. But for myself, presently, I'm the chairperson of the National Jericho Movement, and I've been so since 2009-ish, I believe. You know, Jericho, for the listening audience, was started in 1998. There's a long history to that. I won't go into it, but the main players were Bubba Herman Ferguson and Sister Safia Bukhari. Both of them have passed away. And Brother Jalil Muttaqeen, recently released political prisoner, Black Panther BLA member, living in New York now, recently released on parole. All right, so Jericho basically is, if you go to the website, for those who may not be familiar, www.thejerichomovement.com. It's very simple. You don't have to do the www or the .com. There's the Jericho Movement, and it'll show you what political prisons we represent. And I will say, and Zaid knows this very well, that even though we represent 30-some prisoners now, most of those coming from the movements of the 60s and 70s and on forward, upward now. And it's not that we're so selective about it, but we're a capacity organization. But what we do is amplify not only the names of those from the movements of the Black liberation movements and the American Indian movement, and when there was the Puerto Rican nationalists from the FALN in prison, and the anti-imperialists representing all political prisoners, and just the concept and reality of political prisons in the United States, and keeping that reality in the psychic and minds of the people. Because it may sound kind of corny a little bit, but, and I don't want you to think I'm copying off of George Bush, but no prisoner left behind is our, you know, we can't say that we are having any notion of a liberation movement and champion human rights when all of those, anybody that regardless of the action that they actually did, or because of who they are, was set up, framed, or falsely accused by some COINTELPRO or counterintelligence style program, regardless of that, because we don't look at the guilt or innocence of that as such, but who they are. We represent those people, and we want to make sure that communities around the world, including the Black Lives Matter movement, that there is no movement if you don't support the freedom fighters. Because not to do so, and not to get on this lecture, that means that using the contemporary word, any activist today that gets arrested for any protest today or tomorrow or yesterday, regardless, and is charged with something and actually convicted, the state knows that we are weak when it comes to supporting our political prisoners, and we won't probably support that sister or brother neither. And they will put in their work, whatever it was, they got their 10 years, maybe 20 for something absurd and ridiculous in terms of the charges, and they will be forgotten. They will be forgotten. And now we have comrades in prison that's been there, as Zaid said, you know, Sundiata Acoli, 48 years. Anybody that has a picture of Assata Shakur on their refrigerator, Assata is welcome here. There's Sundiata Acoli, who's alive in prison for that long now, 83 or 84 years old, 48 years in prison. You can't mention Assata Shakur's name and don't mention Sundiata Acoli. You can't do that. So I just wanted to put that out there. Last thing about Jericho before I get into some other comments as it relates to Mumia and Malcolm is when we say we support the prisons, we actually do. I mean, the least we do is put your name on the website and amplify it in our programs as we're talking about these heroes and sheroes right now. But actually, we provide, pay for commissary money. We pay for families to visit. We visit. Letter writing campaigns. We support some of the political prisons have their own defense committees. We're right there, lockstep, right behind them to give that type of support we need and bringing in all the networks and resources that we have, you know, in our sphere of activity. We help raise funds for attorneys. So we do active work. if they're sick, we intervene with third-party medical attention. I'm also on the board of the Abolitionist Law Center. I'm on the board of directors there in Pittsburgh with Brett and all of them brothers there, working directly on Mumia's case when it comes to his medical situation, and even a while back with him receiving his hepatitis C treatment, which, as you know, glad he got it, but now the damage is already done on his liver. As they say, justice delayed is, justice denied. And so there you go, there you have that. But to go on about Mumia and Malcolm, Malcolm made it clearer than, on the shoulders of a lot of warriors before him, that our struggle is a human rights struggle, and we should be projecting ourselves on the international stage. And we have, in fact, we've been doing that. Dr. Mealy just now said how many places she's even been around the world. And this is important because what's happening is not only we're explaining to the world our situation, which is always an explanation needed, because the world looks at, the general population around the world looks at the United States as the place to be. So we have to explain through a lot of illusions, about the reality of poor and oppressed and working class people here in the United States all of the time. It's almost incredulous. I myself have went to the United Nations several times in Geneva to present on political prisoners. And there's always this incredulous look from the rapporteurs there. Like one time, one of them, I think individuals from Denmark even asked me, do people know about what's going on there in the prisons and jails with these political prisoners? My answer to him was, yeah, people know. Matter of fact, they put it on the 6 o'clock news. And that's because they're so arrogant in their stance, and what they do. They can advertise it in front of you now. They can put it on a police body cam right now, and you can see how many police, in spite of the arrest, charge, and conviction of Chauvin, but how many are not convicted. They'll put it on the camera right there. And they can show everybody how we're going to assassinate you. And that's nothing absolutely new. You can go to any history book, John Hope Franklin, Before the Mayflower, any book, old book, new book, and you can see all the strange fruit hanging from the trees. They've been killing us for centuries, actually. Not just, through a picture of a body cam or somebody's cell phone. Just go to any history book when books were actually read, and you'll see all the pictures of Black people, the Emmett Tills and the swollen faces and swollen bodies and assassinations and the murders. You'll see it right there. It's printed in press, isn't it not? All the statistics are right there for slavery and what we went through, isn't it not? And so we have our job really in picking up the legacy of Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz and continuing the live legacy of Mumia Abu-Jamal is to amplify that. But we mentioned some comrades here. Yuri Kuchiyama was also a comrade to the Black Liberation Army. And now that she has passed away, and the ones I'm referring to are out of prison, I can say that she was third party to a lot of underground messages going back and forth so we can get the hell out of Dodge. So she was about her work. And so we salute her on the underground level too. And so Yuri was about that. So that mural that we have with her there is we gotta get that really nice and keep it preserved for all time's sake, because that sister was really about her work. We mentioned also Ho Chi Minh. So one of the quotations that I remember from Ho Chi Minh was, if to reap a return in 10 years, you have to plant some trees. So a lot of times, sisters and brothers, what's happening in this era that we live in, there's a lot of protests going on. And I don't want you to misconstrue anything that I said. Don't do me like ABC or somebody on Fox News or something network. I want you to listen carefully to what I'm saying. We are on the front line protesting. We have to be. We're holding our demonstrations. We have to do that. We're holding our rallies. We have to do that. But what's really remiss is the development of our communities, the long range vision, so that the world will respect a Black person. as a people that are working to build their resolve. That's one of the main things that the Black Panther Party was about. It wasn't, as the media would portray, the shootouts with the police, even though we would go toe to toe because we believe in the self-defense of our communities, as I knows very well, and Dr. Mealy know that, but really it was about our survival programs to build up our communities. So that means that we're trying to educate people, that your next door neighbor, your grandmother, who's not even at the programs, your children who may not even be involved in what you do. There's so much work to be done, you know, and how to cultivate an environment that's revolutionary of and within itself, and how to spread that type of thing so that we can control. Mumia represents the need for the institution of controlling our own media, of being able to tell our own story. You know, so that people can understand. We need an institution of that. There has to be institutionalized, not just Mumia Abu-Jamal, but an institution that carry out throughout our communities. And I don't want to get into preaching, but we don't have that type of visionary strategy. That is why we just go from protest to protest. And that is why Ho Chi Minh's quotation is important now. To reap a return in 10 years. Oh my God, 10 years, they'll be dead. Well, that doesn't, I'm not saying negate our everyday immediate actions to get somebody out. Hear what I am saying. Hear what's not being done. A revolutionary vision, not a reactionary vision, you know, of being out there protesting all of the time. We can't just all the time we come out as because of the emotional response about something. I'm calling on every revolutionary that's ever been in any formation, any organization, anybody that has not been, but just you have that type of consciousness. I challenge you right now. We have to have a vision. That's why a lot of programs that we're on, and I know all of us have been on a lot of programs, and we're very articulate about the problems. And we got 5 minutes left, so let's talk about what we're going to do. Any questions? And I know I'm being facetious, but you know it's true. And the reason, sisters and brothers, in my humble opinion, is because our situation is very difficult. It's very complicated. Many of us live okay lives in the midst of somebody down the street getting killed. We live relatively comfortable lives that a lot of people around the world are trying to get here about, and we live those lives on the backs of slaves because of US imperialism exploiting people all around the world. And look at your personal situation. It's a contradiction, not a guilt trip. But we're in a very complicated place. The vision of the lumpen on the street from the ghettos is different than the vision of somebody in the working class that's bought their own house and this and that in terms of solutions. So I'm saying all that to say it's very difficult. It's not an easy thing. And anybody that stands up and say, well, I got an answer, then by doggone it, nobody must know about it except yourself. You don't got no answer, man. You don't got no answer. You must keep it to yourself, right? But I can tell you how we can get an answer. And I want to take the next couple of minutes and just talk about the tribunal as a strategy. What is the answer? Man, what we need, okay, all right. As revolutionaries, most of our programs consist of very few people. Every once in a while, we can get a big rally going on. But you know yourself, a lot of times we find ourselves talking to the choir. And that is because the United States government and its entities and its narrative has been very successful in ignorantizing, as that's my own word, the people. Education of the people is very important. They control our schools, what our children think, how they perceive the world. Technology takes them off. You think this is working in our favor? Really? You think so? We don't get any money from it, and it's making us more ignorant. We did more in the Black Panther Party and anybody, I guess I'm looking at everybody with the gray in their hair, you know, by putting a quarter in the phone booth and getting that done than we did with this and getting nothing done. With this and getting nothing, you think with this, we would have had the revolution, we would have been free now. If it was just a matter of that type of communication, but we bull jiving. If I had to meet Zaid in Harlem and we had a program, if he ain't on the right time, if I'm not right there, then we got to figure it out. But we made it happen without a cell phone. We made revolution happen. We was on the precipice of that. We were on the precipice of that. when you could talk about socialism and people can embrace it as a economic form of government. That we can talk about the 5 states down south and the Republic of New Africa, and we can embrace that. I went to prison for that. I did 23 years in that. And now I'm sitting here telling you something that I've learned. Sisters and brothers. When Mumia comes home, and I say when he comes home, because I believe it'll be soon. I'm optimistic about that, like Noelle just said. You know, when he comes home, I hope he don't be shocked like I was when I came home. How we have to really fight against the ignorance of our own people. And that the people that was visiting him are the revolutionaries, and that who he's communicating with are the progressive people. And that's not necessarily the psyche of the people. We got some work to do. So here's my closing. What Zaid was talking about is we have a strategy that we're working up on, and it's very advanced. It's the October Tribunal for this year, International Tribunal. And I just want to take a minute to tell you why that is. Now, the word tribunal has been kicked around a lot. There's been a lot of tribunals. Some tribunals are just people talking. The unique feature about this tribunal is that it's an organizing tool. It is an organizing tool to get us to a certain level of mobilization to launch some serious initiative. And at the same time, of course, we're going to charge the United States with the police killings of Black, brown, and indigenous people, hyper incarcerations in the 13th Amendment of slavery of Black, brown, and indigenous people, political prisoners, of course, environmental racism, disparities, racism in the health field that caused 400 years of trauma, and of course, genocide. And we're going to do that. But it's really an organizing tool that we're organizing people leading up into this. And everybody, so I don't have to go into those details. You can go to Spirit of Mandela, because it's this coalition that you can join. It's an open process. We're not asking anybody to abandon their own organization missions or what they're doing themselves, but we're asking you to embrace this process, because as revolutionaries, as the old guard joining hands with the new guard, the revolutionaries joining hands with the activists, even the vernacular has changed. The revolutionaries joining hands with the activists of today. The Black Liberation Movement joining hands with the Black Lives Matter movement today. We're going to have to figure out a better way of articulating, moving, strategizing, mobilizing people so that we can come out of our silos and really make a difference. And now, because of the climate in this country, not only around Mumia, but because of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and everybody else that's been assassinated, it's a groundswell of a certain type of thing going on. You got Biden in, and even though we know that's the, okay, I don't want to get into that too much, but you can see some things when you don't announce what's happening in Palestine. You can see that. So there you go. I said that. All right. But you have people concerned about the reactionary right getting stronger and bum rushing the Capitol, and people are concerned and they're more elevated consciousness, you know. So as Bobby said, we have to seize the time right now, because the climate is right for us to have such a tribunal. A tribunal is just a focal point in time. Leading up to it is mass organizing. When we have the tribunal, we have 13 jurors, some of them coming from overseas. We're going to have impacted and expert witnesses testify. We have a legal team led by Nkechi Taifa, good lawyers representing. It's no adversarial process. The adversarial process will come afterwards when we begin taking these jokers to court and beginning to present ourselves in a very organized way to our movements overseas, because Malcolm would have turned over in his grave to realize that the United Nations doesn't respond to our issues. You heard what I said. Anybody that's been to the UN, I've been there a lot of times. Impotent, powerless. The United States doesn't even pay their dues there. It's important that we continue that international trajectory, because we're connecting with movements around the world and people. And like Ho Chi Minh said, to reap a return in 10 years, you got to plant some trees. We have to continue to plant them trees. But we're not deceiving ourselves. We're going to caveat with this tribunal, and we're going to introduce a lot of these issues into civil court. It's going to give fuel and ammunition for those attorneys that do that. You know, because one thing's for sure, the civil, just because Malcolm said, it's a human rights issue. That doesn't mean to abandon the civil rights, because we have to continue with them both. And the reason is because even when a police kills and assassinates a sister brother in the street, they're not convicted of any, or even arrested for any criminal charges. But here comes the suit. And we know that, these suits don't compensate for a loved one being assassinated in the street, but it is a significant factor and we can't abandon that. So I know I'm talking long, but I want to say that we're inviting you, everybody on this call, everybody listening, to become a part of this process. This is not 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people developing an indictment against the United States, using social media, putting it out there, and everybody can say, oh, did you hear that? Did you see that? And then absolutely nothing being done. You weren't involved in that process anyway, even though it hit on the major issues, but you weren't involved in that process before, at the time, or even after. You just watched it on YouTube like the rest of us. This is not like that. This is your process, and we need you to be involved in this. We have to seize the time. We're talking about outcomes like a people's Senate. Now, what does that even mean? A people's Senate. You got the U.S. Senate, you got the House of Representatives. Now we're going to have our own Senate across all 50 contiguous states, religious nations, indigenous nations, and religious organizations. How are we going to organize that? We're not talking about a few people anymore. We're not talking about a few people anymore. We're not talking to the choir anymore. We're going to, if the truth is on the side of the oppressed, as Malcolm said, prove it. Let me see how well we can organize. Let me see how well you can articulate what we need to do. Let's get in our zones, whatever our skills and acumen is. Let's join this process. We'll help you with yours. This is not Jihad Abdul-Mumit's process. I'm just a worker in the process, not my program. There's no egos in this. There's no error. It's a transparent process. You endorse the tribunal. Why you endorse it? It's $25. Oh my God. $25 for what? Because if 200,000 people endorse, then we're talking about over $5 million. Well, what do you need that money for? What's going on? That's people's money. That's not grant money. Because in order to have a people's Senate, these lawyers that's pro bono, that's doing this pro bono work, how are we going to pay for them to get it into court? How are we going to have regional conferences after the tribunal is over? So we're thinking this through. You're going to invest in it or not, but you got a better plan than the next time Zaid has next year around or whenever it is. Make sure you get make sure you let people know about it, because this is involving a lot of people. It's involving the people, and the people are involved from the beginning to the end and thereafter. So that's my pitch. And so if I want to honor Mumia is my personal friend. He's a comrade of mine. We're the same age. I'm 66. He's 66. I'm just he's a couple of months older than me. Oh, I'm a couple of months older than him. I'll be at 67 in August. I took my Shahada and became a Muslim because of Malcolm X. My whole life has been led by him to become even involved in the struggle. These individuals are main players in my life. I fought this government with a weapon in my hand. I ain't no backyard intellectual kicking this to you. I'm telling you something very serious. We have lost so much ground. In order for a brother or sister to get out of prison, we got to show what a good Boy Scout they are. We can't even use the word political prisoner no more. We can't even mention that they're revolutionaries. I'd be damned if they get out on parole. They made us eat humble pie, man. And I'm tired of eating humble pie. I don't want to go to the grave. Nothing. We did more back in the 60s than is happening now. You go to those in Philadelphia, go down to what's that street, comrades in Philly, of the open drug market, blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks. How many drugs, how many, I'm setting up in a minute. In the Panther Party, we said 2 hurricanes can't blow at the same time. You can't sell drugs on the street while Black Panther Party office is there. Death to the pusher. We carried it hard and real. So you don't have to carry that hard and real right now. All we have to do is be critical thinkers, be transparent, be honest, agree to work with one another. Let's get this thing rolling. We got to make a difference, man. We really have to do this. We can't be pigeonholed and just die out as some, we don't want to go out, 50 years from now and only thing you know about a black person is in a museum when he's doing the slam dunk. Come on now. We're playing ourselves, sisters and brothers, and the world needs us to be able to step up. That's what's going on in Palestine. We have our protests, but if we had a People's Senate, visionarily talking, we will be able to level enough power to even sway a whole vote, a whole nation's vote. And this is thinking ahead. If you want to return in 10 years, we better start planting some trees. And this is a tree to be planted. Other than that, I'll be waiting for the next protest, and so will you. The world needs it. We have to build strength. And so I'm going to close with that, Zaid, in case I know I talked along, and I apologize for that. But once again, closing with the salute to Mumia, from Malcolm to Mumia, as Dr. Mealy said, and connecting them dots. And this time, presenting a viable strategy for revolutionaries to connect with contemporary activists and really make something happen in a place called the United States of America. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, sir, and no apology is necessary. You believe that. Standing squarely on your shoulders. I've been neglected, and as we wind down to do a libation, because we got caught up with some tech difficulties. And I wanted to acknowledge several ancestors who we have to address in a very painful way that speaks to the horrific dimensions of the violations of our human rights here and now. Do we realize that just a few days ago, as we were preparing for the 36th anniversary of the Friday the 13th, we can't make this up, the Friday the 13th, May 13th, 1985, bombing of the Moore family on Osage Avenue in Philadelphia, that the remains of two of our daughters had been passed around like toys for years, and we didn't even know it. So I call the name of Tree Africa and Delicia Africa. Two of our babies two of the 7 children who were killed, incinerated by a bomb that was dropped on their home by the Philadelphia police with the express permission of a class traitor African-American mayor who epitomized the worst of what class betrayal looks like. So I want us to remember as we wind up, to remember that John Africa himself was killed in that. And it epitomized the depth of the disregard for our humanity, even at this late date in the 21st century. So for all of our sons and daughters and grandsons and granddaughters who raised holy hell in the summer of 2020, you ain't finished. Babies, y'all just getting started. Please understand the protracted nature of our struggle. Please prepare yourselves on all the many multi-levels of struggle that we need you to prepare. Please heed the wisdom that you heard from your elders today. And it was no accident that we had the warrior elder close this out in the way that he did. Tell no lies, claim no easy victories, but damn it, claim your victories. We're not fighting to feel good. We are fighting to win. Malcolm X Commemoration Committee proudly salutes our comrades from MOVE. God, no, and then, my big sister, Pam Africa, our legendary minister of confrontation, took the post that was given to her by John Africa to see to it that whatever's done to make sure that Mumia was saved and ultimately freed. God, did we owe that Black woman so much. And it's I dare say it's no accident that we see young women out in the forefront of this particular historical moment. And may we recognize the dimensions of what that means. We fight to win, and we also need to heal from how we have lost and suffered. And that's the energy that's driving this historical moment. And that's something that we can all embrace. It's something that we can all embrace. International human solidarity is still an order of the day. And as international human solidarity, people coming together from all walks of life for the liberation of this planet, that's going to be the difference maker. We fight to win. We fight to win. So on behalf of the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee, let me leave you with these words. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. I believe we will win. And that's none other from Sister Exile Comrade Asada Shakur. So with that, we thank you.
Zaid,
Yes, go ahead, Charles.
Zaid, so I want to make sure, first of all, greetings to all my elders. Thank you for coming on tonight to speak to our people, to remember Malcolm, who was at myself, like you, Baba. He is why I am who I am. A sister in Brooklyn College gave me Malcolm's book. And I had got it before when I was a teenager, but my mind wasn't ready yet. But the sister gave me that book, and by the time I finished that book, I was a new man. And that's not peculiar. That happened to Zaid. Zaid tells the story of him in the drug den. And he stole a copy of Malcolm, but that copy changed his life. So we remember Malcolm, and we remember our brother, Elder, and hope that he is home soon so that he could be with his family. But I just wanted to come on to say to the family that is watching to please like and share this. As you see, I've been on Facebook and on YouTube, jumping around, trying to make sure that I put out the links so that we could support the work of the Jericho movement, so that we could buy the volumes from Prison Radio and donate on Prison Radio, and so that we could give to Jericho. But I wanted to make sure that Mama Noelle is gone, but Baba Stephen, Mama Rosemari, thank you also for the hard work that you've done. And we don't have links up for you, but our people need to send you some money that you could continue your work. So I don't know if you want to give that out orally or send it to Zaid and we can post it on the MXCC page. But freedom, as our elders told us, freedom is not free. So family, if you want these people to continue to do the work that they do, you need to come out your pockets. You can work the 9 to 5. Let them go out there and do the work, but pay them. Pay the organizations that they work with so that they can continue to do what they do on your behalf. They're doing this for you. They could have been scholars. They could have been world-class producers on TV and radio, world-class authors, shaking hands with Obama and dancing while Bill Clinton plays the saxophone and all of that nonsense, but they chose to stand up for truth. Truth, ma'at. Truth, justice, righteousness, reciprocity, balance, and harmony in the universe, family. They chose to stand up for our children. So we need to support those who really support us, not those who support us with lip service or who only support us when they could get something out of us. Support Mama Rosemari, support Baba Stevens, support Mama Noelle, support our brother, I don't know what the J stands for, Baba, but Mumit, in the work of Jericho, and the work of Prison Radio, and the work of MXCC, so that we can continue to give you this information during this time of COVID. We need all your help, family, whatever you could do. If you could make copies, reach out to Jericho. Say, I got 2 reams of paper. Let's make some copies of the flyers so that you could get the word out about the, what'd you say? What'd you say, Zaid? I saw your mouth move.
The tribunal, yeah.
The tribunal, thank you. I was stuck there for a minute. As you hit the 50s, you get brain farts every once in a while.
Brain farts. Oh my God.
So that they could get this word out about the tribunal. If you could give an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours on the phone bank to call your friends or to call their list to Jericho, reach out to brother Baba Mumit. Don't just stand there and reap the benefits of the hard work that everybody is putting in on your behalf. And to finally, I just want to say to what he was saying about being real revolutionary, family, I admire the young people, the Black Lives Matter. I do. I'm not one that marches and rallies, But the best that they can hope to accomplish is some reform. To hell with reform. We don't need reform, family. Reform means that this system is okay, it's just got a few kinks in it. The whole damn system is messed up, and we need our own system. And as my elder, Dr. Linda Jeffrey, says, the only way to deal with a system is to have a system and a systems analysis. So we can no longer afford to keep letting these things happen. George Floyd, before the week was over that we were waiting for the verdict, 3 or 4 other children were murdered in the streets. Before the week was even over, before the trial was even over, family. So the things are not going to change as much as I admire the young people's courage going up against the beast. Things are not going to change by protest. We need some serious action in a systemic way. So get with Jericho, get with MXCC, I'm with another organization also, as well as MXC, the Pan-African Federalist Movement, that is calling for united African states by the year 2030, so that Africans can have an economic, political, and cultural base of our own. But get with an organization, the UNIA, get with an organization that is proving that it's not just for reform, that it's not just down with the capitalist system. Do something today for our elders, for our young people. Do something today. And Baba, Stephen, do you want to say how we can help in your work, help support your work?
Absolutely. Prison Radio, thank you very much for your words. I appreciate them. Prison Radio is the place to go tirelessly, and it's a Herculean task to support not only Mumia, but other political prisoners, and they do a remarkable job. And I go to prisonradio.org and, buy the books, listen to the words, and feel the passion and the revolutionary spirit that's alive there. And they do great work. So I would direct you to go straight there.
All right. And I'll put that in the post. Mama Noelle, is there something that we could put up for you so that people can help you with your work?
I just want to say that every single thing matters, and that the future that we want, we have to make. So I think people, wherever they are and whoever they relate to, should push the agenda and up their game. And so people can contribute to Prison Radio. But we contribute like to all the other types of groups, like I'm contributing to Mike Africa Jr. I'm contributing to CADB. We're doing this together, and we have to pull together, all of us. Like, we're making a commitment to Jericho. So if you're serious about the future, then we all need to pull together.
I see. Thank you, Brother Charles.
You're welcome, Baba.
Thanks for the Charles Zebba. I appreciate you, son. I appreciate you, brother. All right. That was great. And remember, in Rosemary's book too, Fidel and Malcolm Memories of the Meeting. It's gone through another printing. Make sure you get that. It's a great story. It's how Malcolm put the FOI in the streets for the people.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm was a revolutionary within the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam didn't know how to figure out. Right? And I hope they figure it out, because they're still here. And then perhaps one day they'll figure out their own revolutionary potential. And so we appreciate that. Tomorrow is May 19th. It belongs to Malcolm, and we will see you in the streets. All power to the people. X. It's Malcolm is the answer. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.